It's time for Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on into another edition of Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle. I'm the aforementioned Trey Lyle. Jam-packed show for you. Joining us in a moment is the driver of the number 88 Hendrick Motorsports, HendrickCars.com Chevrolet for Junior Motorsports. Rajah Caruth. Had a conversation with him this past weekend at Martinsville. Want to check that out. Also, Caleb Barnes will join us a little later, talk the latest news and notes. But as mentioned, let's get into the Inferno now with the driver of the 88 in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Rajah Caruth heads into the Inferno.
Now it's time for
Way around. Rajah Caruth will take the white flag. 1 lap to go.
That's a great feeling when you got control of the race, doesn't it, Phil? When you see that white flag, you know, if there's a caution now, so be it.
Yeah, the next flag's going to end it.
The 21-year-old out of Washington, D.C.
Just a great spirit, such a good kid. This is awesome.
His 30th truck start came up from the Arkham and Art Series.
Whatever you need, coming to the line. Really proud
Just
of you.
praying for it.
Execute all night.
There it is. Rajah Caruth wins it at Las Vegas. First career win, gets it done.
To Go Into the Inferno with Trey.
Bringing into the Inferno now, the driver of the 88 for Junior Motorsports, HendrickCars.com, Rajah Caruth. Rajah, appreciate you doing this. First question is, how have you been balancing, you're racing for 2 different teams this year to get the full-time schedule, to work out the point situation. How have you been able to balance kind of working with the 2 teams as the season has started?
Yeah, I think it's been a matter of setting priorities and honestly just communication. I think having both teams be very entrenched with Chevrolet helps a lot. But then there's differences, right? Like JR has the support of Hendrick from on every aspect, obviously. And then when I'm in the 32, right, that's an RCR alliance, but it's not as deep as a partnership or whatnot, I guess. So there's differences there, right? But then also even logistics. Jordan's shop is up in Statesville, so that's a added commute versus JR being in Mooresville, and then the Chevrolet Tech Center being in Concord. So just a matter of getting all those ducks in a row, but the communication, like I said, and luckily there's great individuals at both teams that just help smooth that process over. And then also just setting expectations, right? Like I know what the day will probably look like and when I'm in this 88 versus when I'm in the 32, and just really just aiming to have clean races and be there at the end, and the results will take care of themselves, with having that mindset.
When you are in that 88, do you feel any extra pressure to kind of maximize the day, or you kind of try to treat every race the same?
Yeah, every race is the same. Every day is a new opportunity, and I show up just as prepared, no matter what number's on the door of the car that I'm driving. I definitely feel, obviously, the days will look like from a finishing result will vary from team to team, but no extra pressure at all. I know I've been super prepared for this opportunity, and I feel like decent with it so far. So I'm just going to keep up the preparation at both the cores of not just me when I'm in the 88, but also in the 32.
What is ultimately your goal for this season? Obviously, you're off to a pretty good start, 10th in points. You got to feel pretty good about that positioning. What is kind of the end goal for you this season?
It's hard to. I don't want to set an end goal. I'm going to contradict myself. I don't want to set an end goal on a outcome per se. But, certainly, like, we all show up to win. We all show up to compete for a championship. And that's ultimately what I would like to do, and hope that I can kind of smooth out this fall I've had in points from 2nd to 6th to 8th, now 10th. But hopefully these couple races I can climb back up in the point standings. And I think as a whole, it would be great to get my first win sometime this year. And ultimately, I'm looking for that, and then hopefully add some more to that. But, we all show up to try to win a championship, and If I can't get it from the driver's standpoint, it would be great to get this 88 HendrickCars.com Chevy and owner's title this year. So that's where I'm at. Obviously, like I said, we all show up to try to win races and compete for the championship, but there can only be one champion. So, you know, if I can do my part and get my first win, that would be great at the very least this year. And, you know, help these guys get an owner's title and allow me to get as high as I can in the driver's standings.
Last week at Darlington, you were able to bring Charlemagne to God. You were on the Breakfast Club. How was that experience like? Obviously, it's a pretty big platform for you. And then ultimately, what was his thoughts on actually being at Darlington?
It was dope. I think anytime – I've been wanting to go on that show for a minute, so that was super cool to get to do. And all of them, Charlemagne, Jess, Lauren, DJ Envy, they're all so cool. So I think – and Charlemagne's actually from Charleston, so he's familiar with racing, familiar with Darlington. He actually grew up going to drag races, and so it was not unnormal for him to be at the racetrack, and I think that piqued more of an interest for him. I'm speaking on his behalf, obviously, but hopefully that's not the last time we see him at the racetrack. But, yeah, it was a great experience, and any time that we can have just bridge a gap and bring more people to the sport like that, I'm going to jump on that opportunity, and it was great to do that last week.
Speaking of bridging the gap, if you looked at yourself, so you tweeted, I believe, May of 2020, you tweeted a photo of Martin Truex Jr., and you said one day, and obviously talking about winning a championship. And then I think a year later you won a race. But if you went back to yourself and told them, hey, man, I'm driving a HendrickCars.com Chevrolet for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and JR Motorsports, how would he react?
Disbelief for sure. I don't think I would ever thought it'd line up like this. You certainly hope. I mean, as a kid, right, for me, I played the NASCAR games, and I would pick a Hendrick car when it wasn't like the My Career or kind of story mode, career mode type of deal. And I'd pick either the 48, the 88, or the 54/6 for Bubba. And so to be driving this car is super cool. And I mean, I've had a great time this year driving for JRM, Dale Kelly, LW, Mr. H, like the whole ownership group, all the leadership, from the top to the bottom. It's really allowed me to have a lot of fun, and I feel like I lost a little bit of that last year. So it's been truly a blessing, and I've had a great time. So to answer your question, I don't know what I'd tell myself. I guess if I had the chance to see where things would all line up, but I mean, I wouldn't change it because all the lessons and the ups and downs have led to today and this weekend. So hopefully it works out in our favor.
All right, we're gonna go away from racing. You're a DC sports fan. No, this is positive. I promise. All right, so I want you to put your Wizards and Commanders GM hat on. Commanders have the 7th pick. Wizards could get the 1st pick. You're making the 2 draft picks. Where are you going?
Okay, I'll start with the Wizards. Okay, so currently our roster: Trey Young, Bilal Kubalali, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Will Riley. I think we still have Justin Champagny, AD obviously, Alex Sarr. So we have a pretty stacked team in terms of young talent. As the first pick, I mean, I would probably take AJ DeVance to be honest. But I mean, you never know. I think, like I said, I mentioned a lot of like young guys that we've drafted the last couple of years. I hope I didn't forget anybody, but yeah, like I said, Will, Alex, Trey, Bilal, Keyshawn. Like we've drafted a good young core, and it'd be hard to AJ is so dynamic. Like they would all figure it out. I guess this is why I stick to racing. But that's my thoughts for the Wizards. As far as the Commanders, I mean, we've had some great signings. We got De'Ami Brown back on a 1 year. Got one of the running backs from Tampa Bay. Re-signed Laramie Tunsil. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to plead the 5th on the Commanders, but I think for the Wizards, and I plead the 5th on the Commanders just because I like all the offseason signs and hires so far. So I'm kind of just like, we'll see where it goes for the draft, but for the Wizards, I'd pick AJ DeVance for sure.
I agree with you. Jeremiah Love is the hot name for the Commanders.
I wouldn't hate that at all. Would not hate that at all.
Thank you so much for your time, Raj. I appreciate it. Good luck this weekend in Martinsville, and good luck the rest of the season.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Steven at JR Motorsports, Rajah, and all the folks there for that great conversation I had with him this past weekend at Martinsville. Even got to talk about his DC sports fanhood, which, the sports fan in me did enjoy. But let's get to the latest news in NASCAR with What's Still Hot. Caleb Barnes, it's time to come on in. So let's get to it. What's still hot?
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
Joining me now at Caleb Barnes _. He joins me most of these weeks. He helps me produce this show along with Chris. So, Caleb, good morning. Or good afternoon. We're recording this at night.
Good morning.
But, good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Whenever you're listening to this.
Whatever time you listen to this, I hope you're having a good day.
Yes. But let's get to an interesting tidbit. So not a busy week in the news. We'll get to probably the biggest story of the week in a moment. But I just want to pose a question. So Jordan Bianchi threw this idea out. Max Verstappen has been complaining about Formula One, the new car he is not a big fan of. Jordan Bianchi, the Athletic, proposed the idea of a Godfather author that IndyCar or NASCAR could throw at Max Verstappen. If I gave you a scale of like a percentage, 1 to 100, that NASCAR could lure Max Verstappen, what would you put the percentage at?
I put it at 40%, or 1 through 10. I put it at a 4. I think that's a big ask. I think there's a chance that we could see Max potentially show interest in running a race. I know he said no to IndyCar and ovals and things like that, but I know with like Project 91 and some of the other one-off cars, I feel like there's a way that a team or NASCAR or someone in the NASCAR world could talk Max into coming over and giving a couple races a shot. I don't see a world where he signs up for a full season just with the F1 schedule. It's a lot shorter, a lot more breaks, things like that. And I think like if we're going to be, I know it's like a whole wish list type of thing, and April Fool's Day, even a little bit with some of that. You see some of those fake headlines going around. But if we're going to be real about this, I think Max really, I think it's the WC, the World Endurance Challenge. He's been racing in some of those sports cars and things like that. And I think he's found some joy, some fun, some success in doing those types of races. And so I think realistically that's where he would go. But I do think there's an opportunity that we could see him cross over and try a NASCAR race and something like that. I know he's got some connections, I believe, to Daniel Suarez as well. So I would love to see it. I would be here for it. It'd be even cooler if there was a way that they could get him to run a few full-time seasons. But both on the commitment side, it's a lot to commit to for an entire season of NASCAR. But also on the side of like, I don't know how much Max, if he's not having fun running around in 7th Formula One, I don't know how much fun he would have if he's trying to run a full season running in the mid-pack or 20th or worse in like a Cup Series oval race. So realistically, that's why I give it about a 40% chance. I think we could see him come over and try a race, but I mean, he's got plenty of years of racing ahead of him, so he can do whatever he wants to. So we'll see. I would love to see it. I'm here for it if that does indeed happening at some point.
Well, you would expect maybe a Ford, since he technically drives a Ford in Formula One, at least a Ford engine. That is who's sponsoring the Red Bull engine team is Ford. So maybe, a fourth Penske car. They get frisky with that. I would love to see him at a Coda. I think he could do great there. He could do great at. I would love to see him at like a Watkins Glen. The San Diego Street
does have the Red Bull sponsorship in NASCAR though.
Yeah, but they don't have Ford, so I wonder what would be the priority. But just throwing that out there. But we've seen this cross branded over. To the biggest news of the week, Daniel Dye has been officially reinstated by NASCAR after his suspension and sensitivity training he was given. However, he was not going to return to Kaulig Racing. Corey LaJoie for the rest of the season will drive the number 10 truck. The 25 this weekend, instead of Corey LaJoie, will be driven by Ty Dillon. Corey LaJoie officially will be earning points in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And so he'll be eligible for the $50,000 bonus this weekend if he gets the win. The Triple Truck Challenge. You say that 3 times fast. His points are now at 0, however, for the remainder of the season. So it might be a little too much to get to a playoff spot for the 10. But ultimately, this is similar to kind of what happened with Noah Gragson, where he got reinstated quickly by NASCAR, but did leave Legacy Motor Club after his recent, after his social media post that resulted in that suspension by NASCAR. I don't want to ask you about the Daniel Dye side of this. We've kind of already litigated that enough. What do you think ultimately of Corey LaJoie being the option for the 10 truck for the rest of the season, Caleb?
It's now or never, I think, for Corey LaJoie with this option. I know he kind of, I guess, ruffled some feathers last year when he made his comments about he'd rather have a handful of cup opportunities rather instead of going and running a full season in trucks or the O'Reilly series. Make sure I say the right one. I'm still on the brain of the Xfinity series. So yeah, I think with this opportunity, it's kind of time to see, like, can he go and compete for wins, or is it going to be more of a Matt DiBenedetto situation where maybe he just kind of runs mid pack and still only competes at super speedways? I will say the tough part with the Ram trucks is, like, we're still trying to figure out where that team is as a whole. I mean, for starters, it's not like there's really been enough races to figure that out here in just the beginning of the season. But also, I mean, it's a huge deal for him to be able to get that opportunity and try to go compete on a weekly basis now. And just like so far in the races that he's run, it's like I feel like I haven't even remembered that he's in the race. So if he can go out and start running consistently near the front and getting his name and his truck mentioned and on TV in a good way, I think it's a good sign for Corey, and any hopes that he has that he wants to continue driving. But at the same time, if he just is more of a nothing burger type of driver this year, then I think that could be trouble for seeing Corey in the future in any sort of other cars. I know he might still kind of get some of these one-off rides with Rick Ware, or right now this year's been RFK Racing, but this is a big opportunity. I think a lot, like, it's going to go under the radar with where we're at in the season and everything, but it's a pretty huge. It could be a pretty huge turning point for Corey.
I do think this is a better option for Dodge. You mentioned that. I think we are, obviously they're like basically behind the 8 ball when it comes to simulator time, and maybe there were bigger expectations given that this is a team still in development. I do think having Corey LaJoie there and to go along with Justin Haley as your full-time guys instead of two younger guys like they had with Minnie Tyrell, who has no experience whatsoever, and Daniel Dye, who has a few years of experience. You have two very experienced race car drivers in Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie that kind of can give you a good floor of where your trucks want to be as you develop them. And then obviously you have Minnie as kind of the developmental guy. It's a 1-year deal, obviously, from winning the seat. And then you'll have the all-star car that you can put in, your Tony Stewarts of the world, your fun guys of the world. But ultimately, I do think it helps Colleague in terms of getting a floor setter. But you're right, this might be the last big opportunity for Corey LaJoie. Speaking of guys who maybe prove some people wrong, which Corey LaJoie might be trying to do, a guy who probably quieted his driver's fan base this weekend is our focus for the soundbite of the week.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm going to bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track racing.
It's time for the sound bites of the week.
Hey, Alan. So you guys pit with 138 to go, and a lot of the chatter was like, no, we're not going to take the bait yet. Like, we need to stay out 30 to 40 more laps. I guess they were just trying to split the whole stage in half. So you were going to run yours out and then pit with, what, maybe like 80 to go or something like that?
I think the runs, yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just wondering your strategy, yeah.
Yeah, so it would, splitting I think it was like 78 lap runs or something like that, the exact number. I came too early from what, the two-stop, split would be. So, yeah, I think for us, it's, it's a pretty dynamic thing because for Denny, it was probably mathematically faster to run it to one stop because he had track position and he had clean air. And then for us, we were kind of teetering, was it going to be better or not going to be better? And then I had a lot of confidence that most people were going to try to one-stop it, and I just felt like we had to give ourselves a shot and do something different, right, and try to give ourselves an opportunity. I think probably where it turned a little different is, when we pit, everybody basically at that time then has the same track position relatively, right? I mean, you're all spread around the track. So that advantage that the leaders had, it was diminished, and when we pit, our lap times, I think, were really pretty good, and our fall-off was less than expected or less than the guys had run that run before. So as soon as those guys who are going to one-stop then start shorting that by significant amounts of laps, that's playing to our hands, right? Because then they've got to run a lot longer, and mathematically they're then going to be worse. From where the majority of the people stopped, I think for anyone that would have been better to two-stop it. So the flip side of that is the caution exposure. You don't expect anyone, I don't think anybody in the top five, their cars were going to be good for long runs, and they were ultimately going to be able to one-stop it and minimize the exposure of the caution coming out and being trapped a lap down. So it was really not going to work. If I'm in their spot, I'm doing the same thing, right? You just don't want to take that caution risk. But where we were, we were probably right around the position that it makes sense to take that risk. Maybe a little further than us. If I was a little further up, it would have been worth doing. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, like you can't sit on your hands and run 10th. So you got to do something, right? So I think that was the best shot.
I was just going to add, I was sitting on the 5 box, so I was listening to Cliff and some of the discussions that they were having, and they had not planned to do the two-stop, if you want to call it that, and then they kind of shorted it, and then it drug everybody, right? So because they came a little earlier, and I don't remember where they were sitting 6th, 7th, and I think they were struggling a little bit with some rear tire wear and grip, and then all of a sudden, that brought everybody in, which again played into their hands. That wasn't the plan. It's just that I thought that was interesting.
Caleb, so there's a strategy breakdown by Alan Gustin. Obviously, the caution comes at the perfect time for the 9 team, and Danny messes up on a restart. Throw that in there. But the strategy is ultimately a big part of why Chase Elliott got into victory lane. And to say Alan Gustin is beloved by his driver's fan base would be an very big understatement. I don't think even liked would be the right thing. He's a very polarizing figure amongst Chase Elliott fans. We'll put it that way. It felt like Alan Gustafson had a little bit of a drop the mic moment on Sunday with just the perfect strategy at the perfect time to show why, hey, I'm pretty good at this thing.
Yeah, and I mean he's been one that's gotten bit by alternate strategies. I feel like more than most. Like guys like Paul Wolf or Todd Gordon, those were guys with, especially just the Penske camp as a whole, that you would always talk about them in the past of like they were guys that would try something different and they would get the most out of their alternate strategy. But sometimes it feels like Alan Gustafson is trying things just to be different, and then it ends up biting them. But like, I don't think that's a bad mindset. I know it frustrates the heck out of Chase fans, but I mean, you heard him say, and you heard in the broadcast a lot during that last stage, when you've got a car, especially a car as dominant as Denny Hamlin's was, like, if you follow the leader, you're going to follow the leader. Like, if you do the same thing as the guy that you can't catch, then you're going to stay behind that guy the entire race. And it just feels like the last 5 to 10 years, basically everybody stays in the same camp as the leader, even if they know they're basically conceding the race. And so, like, a lot of times Alan is kind of the one who challenges some of that normal and some of that kind of average pit stop strategy. And like I said, a lot of times it bites him, but it worked out this time. And there's a part of me too, like I would have been really curious to see where Chase would have netted out had the whole final stage run green. Obviously at a short track at a place like Martinsville or Bristol or whatever, like you never want to see final stages run green the entire way because like it's tough to see the entire field go through and make green flag pit stops at short tracks like that. But at the same time, I remember, I think it was the 2022 Spring Richmond race, and there was some of that alternate, like, two-stop versus one-stop strategy going on. And, like, William Byron had the lead until, like, 3 laps to go, and Denny Hamlin was charging through the field with fresher tires and passed him right with 3 to go and won the race. And so, like, I would have been curious to see if, with as big a tire fall-off as we were seeing on Sunday, if Chase would have had enough of an offset to drive back through the field and make up those 2 laps or a lap and a half or whatever. But at the same time, like, I'm glad we didn't have to. People would have been probably frustrated. I mean, they were frustrated one way or the other. But last point I'll make is, like I mentioned, like, Allen feels like Allen in that 19 gets bit so much by trying some alternating strategies. So I don't want to hear any of this. Oh, NASCAR threw the caution to benefit Chase type of stuff, because like, they've had so many strategy fails that, like, it's about time that something actually went right for once. This isn't like your Dale Jr. Like, every single time Dale Jr. would get the caution as soon as he got to the lucky dog. Like, no, this is like, oh, they finally got one right, you know. So I don't think this is any sort of. I mean, you're gonna have that anytime a Hendrick car wins, I feel like, or you're gonna have the Hendrick camp saying that anytime a Gibbs car wins. So just props to Allen and that 9 team for doing something to shake up the race, and it actually stuck this one time. So congrats. Yeah, I think he absolutely earned the opportunity to have a mic drop moment there.
Yeah, Alan Gustafson's good crew chief. Just saying. That's basically it. Leave it that way. Well, Caleb, just like Chase Elliott, he got the checkered flag first. It's our turn to take that checkered flag home and wrap this podcast up.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Anything you want to rant, rave, or review? Caleb Barnes, you're up first.
Okay, my mini rant, since we're recording this on April 1st, is that April Fool's Day is like the worst day in the history of ever, because everybody posts things that's very obviously fake, but then, like, I'm hopping on trying to see if there's any actual real news, but then I have to be like, oh, is this fake or is this real? And then sometimes it's really hard to tell, even as a iPad generation Gen Z person that's grown up with the internet. It's still, anyways, that's my rant for the day. My other thing I wanted to mention, I know we talk about that caution and the weird timing of it, and there's been a lot of props, and I would still echo the props to NASCAR for being consistent with the cautions this year. We've seen them kind of be reluctant to throw it, and that's, again, all across the board, great job. I do think when the 10 car was spitting debris there, trying to make it to pit road, I think that probably should have been a caution at that point, because for starters, he about got run over a couple times on the backstretch when he was trying to find a hole to cut across. Then he made the extra lap, and then they kind of showed a few different shots of things. I don't know if it was pieces of concrete, rocks, and pebbles, or if it was parts of the car, but things were just shooting out of the right front wheel well. And that is an issue. Like, I know you want to, it's like on a big 1.5-mile track, if a car is blowing a tire, but they're down on the apron, like,
I was there,
not affecting
and you could
anybody.
see, yeah, like, you could see the debris. So, like, this is a good call caution. Like,
yeah,
it should have been called.
Because I just think it should have been called when the 10 had the problem instead of waiting multiple laps, because I don't know if it was, I think it was in the last 2 to 3 years, or a race at Pocono, there were some brake rotors going, and I think Michael McDowell lost a brake rotor, and they didn't throw a caution for the brake rotor. Like, you saw him smoking, and then he was able to avoid having a massive crash, because normally at Pocono, when you see a brake rotor go, there's a huge crash that follows. But McDowell somehow didn't have that happen. But then a few laps later, they threw a caution for debris. And then I remember seeing afterwards some pieces of the brake rotor actually went up in the stands and hit some people and caused some injuries. And so, like, that's the reason why whenever you're at a track like Martinsville or a short track or whatever, where brakes are a heavy issue, like, if you can tell that it's just a tire going down, like Chris Buescher had a few flat tires, there's no need for it. But something like the Ty Dillon thing, where it's more than a tire issue, like, that was definitely a warranted caution. So I know the timing of it was weird and everything, but it was definitely needed. I'm glad you mentioned seeing that as well. But again, props to NASCAR for being consistent this year. I just think in that specific instance, that one should have been a caution earlier, if that makes sense.
Mine's going to be an advice column. Any young journalist listening to this, any, race fan, if you're, somehow you get a pit pass for the day, you're listening to this, I just want to say, keep your head on a swivel at times. Chris, you can roll this clip.
And then you'll drive straight and then back to the left. You'll see them all staged up. There's about 3 of them in the garage area.
Keep your head on a swivel, kids. Yeah, so that was me almost getting ran over by Zane Smith. Shout out to Jeff Gluck for literally grabbing me and saving me. I was tweeting out a photo of Bubba Wallace because he just wrecked out. This was part of the big wreck that happened, that started by the 23. So yeah, just keep your head on a swivel is my best advice. And shout out to Jeff Gluck for saving my life. So that was but a great... Yeah. And you know what would take me out? 1, Zane Smith, and 2, the Long John Silver's car. So it's like all of Front Stretch's memes coming at once to hit me.
Hey, Martinsville's a tough place for that though, because it's it's so loud, it's so congested. Like there's not a ton of places to go anyways. So like that I can see how easily that could be. But I'm glad, Trey, you are still with us here.
Yeah, and I want to note that looks not as bad as it felt in live. It felt like he was this is me, this is Zane. Like that's how it felt. But yeah, keep your head on the civil kids. Speaking of content at Martinsville, if you missed any of our content, Michael Massey and I's content from this past weekend, check out our YouTube page, frontstretch.com/frontstretch. Plenty of content. Our grassroots page got great content as well. We went balls to the wall coverage at Martinsville. We had coverage from the ARCA race as well at Hickory this past weekend. So check that out. We'll have coverage this weekend in Rockingham. Luke and Glover and Michael Massey will be there. At Caleb Barnes _ at Trey Lyle VT. Caleb, you're not writing anything, right? Other than the article for this podcast.
No.
Cool. I just want to make sure. I just didn't want to miss a plug. For Chris Graham, who helping produce this. Caleb Barnes also helps produce this and help me co-host. And I'm Trey Lyle, signing off for this edition of Bringing the Heat.